All right. Hello, peeps. We are going to be doing our vocabulary diamond. I'm recording this for you in case you're absent or you're unable to be in class when we make our diamond. This week you are reading a passage. I guess it's kind of like an article, it's a nonfiction article. It's called Coming Distractions Questioning Movies. It's an article that talks about some of the ideas that go into movies and some of the reasoning that goes into movies and ways in which movies influence us as the public and influence you as children. So we're going to go ahead and fold our diamond into 4 sections. We're going to make our lines and we're going to put X's in each box. My pen appears to be losing it. Uh-oh. So we're going to put an X in each box, which makes the lovely diamond shape. I'm going to switch to another pen, I think. I'm going to change color and go purple on us. So we're going to try this purple one and see. All right. We're going to put an X in each box, all 8 boxes. Get an X. And I'm putting my synonym lines in too while I do this. And here comes the back side of the paper. Okay, we're almost done here. All right, and I'm putting my synonym lines in. So eventually, I will be cutting this part out of the movie. So hopefully you kind of already know how to fold your paper into 4 and make the diamond. So I'm going to write my name at the top, of course. And the first word this week is producer. Now, this is a word that has a lot of different meanings and associations to it. When we study the food chain, there is a word called producer, and there's a category in the food chain called producers. In this case, because we're talking about movies and we're talking about media, we're talking about a person responsible for a motion picture. And the synonym I found was advocate. Producer is a noun. So a producer is somebody that they are in charge of raising money for a movie. They're in charge of making sure that the director keeps the movie on track. The producer is in charge of the editing of the movie, the distribution of the movie. So the producer is kind of a big job. It's a person that's really in charge of the production of a movie or a TV show. Sometimes there might be two producers on a movie or a TV show because it is such a big job. One's usually called the executive producer, and the other one is usually just called the producer. So I'm trying to think if we could draw a picture, and I think maybe one of the best pictures that could easily describe a producer would be one of these clapboards that they use when they're making movies, right? Where they write on here the name of the movie, the date, and then they have this, it's like a wooden clapper, and they use that in front of the movie. They clap it, and that way that they can tell information about the movie and what scene they're filming, right? So a producer is really in charge of all of those important things that make the movie come together into one production. The number one thing they're in charge of is the money aspect of a movie, because without the money, a movie can't be, you can't hire actors or actresses or directors. So they basically fundraise and they take care of all the details. All right, our next word that we are going to look up is promote. So in this article, they're going to be talking about how things get promoted to young people through advertising. They're also going to talk about this word promote in the sense that they're talking about developing ideas. And so promote means, the definition is to encourage to flourish. And so this word also gets used outside of movies and outside of media. Sometimes when somebody, like, let's say you graduate from elementary school, sometimes that's called promoting or promotion. Or sometimes you're at a job and you might get promoted, which means that you are encouraged to do even better in your job. And so if we think about it in the sense of jobs, sometimes we can think, oh, well, I got a promotion at work and now I have a different title at work, and here's my desk, and I have my pencil holder. And I got promoted to vice president of production, right? So you can get a promotion at work. You're going to be, at the end of the year, hopefully you'll be promoted on to 5th grade, right? So you'll move on. Our next word is jolts. And to jolt means to jar or shake roughly. And the synonym for that is shock. And it's a verb. Sometimes when we feel, I believe in this story, they're going to use it in the sense of you're shocked when you're watching something, like you're watching an action movie and you feel shocked or jolted with the action in the movie. Jolts can also be used, like if there was an earthquake. I remember several years ago, I was at my old school. I was sitting in my portable building. My class was out at PE. I was grading papers, and there was the weirdest earthquake. It wasn't, the ground didn't move back and forth. It just was like a boom, and the ground shook once really hard with a big jolt. And I didn't even know it was an earthquake. Um, Sometimes the first graders in the classroom next door to me had dance parties and they jumped around, and so I assumed, oh, it's just first graders jumping or doing some kind of activity. But then I looked later and it was an earthquake, and my class didn't feel it either because they were at PE and they were doing something fun outside and they didn't really notice it. But it was a loud and harsh jolt, just one shock. So sometimes you can feel jolts when there are earthquakes. Earthquakes are caused by plates that are part of the crust that are sliding back and forth. We have a giant fault. It's called the San Andreas Fault. And it's a fault line that's runs right next to San Juan Bautista. And there are quite a few earthquakes on that fault line. And so we feel a lot of earthquakes here in Watsonville because that fault line is so nearby. So sometimes there are small earthquakes on it. Sometimes there are large earthquakes. All right, our next word is manipulate. Manipulate is a verb, and it means to influence skillfully. So in this case, in our article that we're reading, they're going to talk about how sometimes the media or sometimes television... Oops, sorry. They're going to talk about how sometimes the media or television can influence you as a young person, right? You might be watching cartoons on Saturday morning, and so they're going to advertise sugary cereal that only kids eat to you, or they're going to advertise toys to you or video games to get you to purchase those particular items because that's when you're watching TV. Or if you go to a children's movie, you might see ads at the beginning of the movie that relate to toys or things that would interest children. So manipulating means that you're kind of being used in a not super honest way. Someone knows exactly what you like and they're trying to get you to purchase something or do something that you don't necessarily want to do. Um, the internet's a good example of that. There are lots of ads on social media, and I'll find that if I'm looking up shoes online, sometimes I will see ads on Facebook or Instagram of shoes that I've looked up online, and I feel like they're trying to manipulate me to buy the shoes because they know I was looking for them earlier. Um, so this gets used a lot in relation to advertising, right? So when you're looking through a magazine or a book and you see an advertisement that's trying to get you to buy something, like maybe it's trying to get you to buy a certain kind of cereal, and it's a kids magazine, so it knows that you like that kind of cereal because you're a kid and adults usually don't eat it. unless they have kids. So sometimes advertisers try to manipulate you just because of your age to try to get you to do something that you don't necessarily have an interest in doing. The synonym for that is manage. So manipulate kind of tends to have a little bit of um, a negative connotation to it or a negative meaning to it. If you're being manipulated, it's not necessarily a good thing, right? It's a word that has like sort of a dark connotation to it, like you're tricking somebody, right? So this sounds really positive. I'm influencing you skillfully, but a synonym could also be to trick, right? If you think about it, to trick somebody into doing something that they probably weren't going to do anyway. So we'll use trick cereal there as a guide. Okay, we're going to flip that over, and we're going to look at our next word, and that is focus. Um, Focus is a noun. It can also be a verb, right? You can actually be focusing. Um, in this case, we're using it as a noun. The synonym is center, and it's a central point of attention. Right? So if you're focusing on something, you're really zeroing in and making sure that you are seeing it, you're attending to it. I kind of think of that as being like a bullseye, right? If you're focusing on. I had a student a long time ago. Her name was Emily. She was this little girl. She's a little bit mighty, super strong, and she did archery as an activity that she liked doing in her spare time. And so she was really great with a bow and arrow. And she had super awesome aim. And even though she was tiny, her arms, like the muscles on her arms, were so strong from pulling the bow. So I kind of think of focus as Emily making a shot, right? Like she would stand. She gave us a demonstration one time at school, and she would stand and focus and pay attention, right? And kind of center, like realize where the center of the bullseye was. And it took great amounts of focus. She was also really good at focusing during school, too. When we were doing work, she was on task. And so focus kind of means that you're able to find the center of your attention, right? Or the central point of attention. All right, our next word is generated. So, generated is a verb, and the article is probably going to talk to you about how special effects in movies are generated, how they're created. So, it means to bring into existence. And generated is a verb, and discharge was the. So generated means that you start something, right? You begin a task or you create something. So you could generate your own cartoon, right? You could generate your own drawing. You could generate your own contest. Let's say that you like drawing. So I told you a little bit about Inktober. The person who created Inktober was an artist that really liked drawing, and he wanted to practice drawing. So he started this whole big contest on social media. Now it's on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And so he created this contest because he liked drawing and he wanted to get better at drawing. So he created these different prompts that people can choose from to do drawings from, right? And the reason why he did it was just so that he could get better at drawing his own self. Our next word is studio. So a studio is a place where creation happens. It's a noun. And the synonym for that is a French word. And the French word is atelier. Atelier. It's not eight liar, it's atelier. And an atelier is a place where a painter goes to paint or a sculptor goes to sculpt. It's basically a place where you have all your materials and tools at hand so that you're ready to work and ready to create. So in this case, they're going to be talking about a movie studio, right, where they create movies or create animation, right? In my case, my clay studio is a shed. Clay is really messy, as you've probably already discovered. I use brown clay, which is even more messy and dusty and stains my hands and stains my clothes. And so I don't use brown clay in my house. I have a rule with myself that there's no. I think I've used brown clay in my house a few times and then I have to clean up a lot. And so I get mad at myself. So an atelier or a studio is a place where someone creates or makes artwork. So you could think of it as I'm going to draw a little palette, like a painting palette, right, that has colors on it, blobs of paint on it. We'll draw some little paint brushes. And maybe some tubes of paint. So an atelier or a studio is, in this case, it's going to be a place where movies or animations are made. Um, and if you've been to Universal Studios, you know that the amusement park is based on an old movie studio, right? Where movies were made back in the old days in TV shows. All right, our last word is critics. So, a critic is a person who judges or evaluates. It's a noun. And I think it's pretty much from a French word which is similar, which we do a lot in art, and it's called critique, right? And when you critique something, let's say you make your pumpkin rattle, you sit it down when you're done and you look at it and you say, how well does this work? How well did I make this? Am I happy with it? Is it accomplishing? Is it rattling? Is it accomplishing what I want it to accomplish? Does it look like a pumpkin? Right? So critiquing means that you're usually thinking about artwork or thinking about a movie in this case. So a critic is somebody who does that for a living. They evaluate or they judge what other people make too. So it's a person who judges or evaluates. And another word for that is a pundit. Pundit is kind of a negative version of that. A pundit is somebody who criticizes kind of needlessly, like they're kind of negative with their criticism. So a critic is somebody who's going to look at your movie and maybe write a movie review, right, of your movie. And maybe that will be on a website, or maybe it will be on TV, right? Maybe your movie will get 2 thumbs up, right? So sometimes um, critics do that for a living. They criticize other people's artwork for a living. There is a critic around here that writes for the newspaper, the local papers, and um, he's gone to several exhibits that I've been in and kind of critiqued the exhibits. And I've been in the paper before for things that he's written about. So a critic is somebody that's kind of judging other people's work. Usually it's somebody that is skilled, right? So they have a they either watch a lot of movies and so they understand what makes a good movie, or there's somebody that looks at a lot of artwork and so they understand what makes artwork successful or a piece of artwork successful, right? There's an old saying, everyone's a critic. Everyone criticizes everything we do, but usually a real critic is somebody that has some skill in the particular area that they're judging. All right, so I hope this helps, and I hope you're getting a really good experience with making a diamond so that eventually you can um, do it without the movie or without the support. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for spending your time working on this together, and I will talk to you later. Bye.